So great to be on here this afternoon, following such brilliant sessions we've had all throughout the day. So I'm going to be joined by Marina from Anglia Ruskin University, who was going to be talking about delivering live briefs at scale. So I met Marina having read about her work in an advanced HE compendium, and the first conversation I had with her, the first thing I thought was this would make a brilliant session at the Employability Lab. So here we are. Marina, would you like to give a brief introduction to yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, my name is Marina. I work as an academic consultant for employability at Anglia Ruskin University. I'm originally from Brazil. My background is in management and work and organizational psychology. So, I come from an academic background. I was a senior lecturer and director of undergraduate courses at the Faculty of Business and Law at Anglia Ruskin University before joining a project that was conducted back in 2018-19 of a complete review of our curriculum. So I initially joined that as a secondment, a strategic project that was combining academic expertise from different faculties. And then here I am at this point in time with kind of the key initiative that came out of that big review project that we engaged in as a result of a change in our education strategy, employability strategy at the time.
Okay, great. So do you want to talk us through the project then and give us sort of a brief overview?
So sure. So live briefs are a type of work integrated learning. Some in the literature might refer to it as service learning, although I would prefer to locate it as a work integrated learning type of initiative, because we serve different purposes with the program, as I will explain a bit later. So they are in essence little projects that are co-designed between academics and professional partners from industry or local authorities. And they are then integrated into a compulsory normal top module into our courses. The program institutionally was launched as something that was strategic to us, that was core to our offer at AAU back in 2021. So in the year of the pandemic. So we can have a separate session around the reflecting on how how was our experience in launching such a significant program back then. But the idea was that this was a program that was going to be compulsory and is compulsory for all our undergraduate courses that do not offer professional practice as a compulsory element in them. So the commitment from the institution with prospective students is that they're going to have an experience of a live brief, at least one in their first year of study, level 4, and at least one in their second year of study, level 5. And that's a minimum commitment from us to our students. So that started 2021. We are now on our 4th year of delivery. A lot of learning on the way, but the briefs are then integrated into the courses. They are co-designed between, as I said, the academic and a professional partner. And I think what makes them quite distinctive is that they are pedagogically, designed to integrate seamlessly into a normal top module. They are not purposefully designed modules to be project-based modules. And that was the trick, I think, for us and for academics working on this, because what we needed was to make sure that those briefs were aligned to learning outcomes, that whatever students were working on as an output for a brief could be integrated into a piece of summative assessment. So there was a big component of academic development behind the project, which is where me and my team came into, kind of as resources, put it that way, to facilitate that change at an institutional level.
Yeah, I think it's one of those debates that a lot of projects I've been working on recently is looking at, are standalone modules more effective, or should it be integrated into sort of, and more employability and sort of work-based learning is a teaching and learning challenge rather than this sort of employability thing that sits separately. And I think that integration is definitely the sort of direction of travel we're starting to see. So do you want to just give us a few of the sort of drivers? Obviously, it's a big, ambitious project, and with senior sort of stakeholder buy-in to sort of push something through of this scale. So, do you want to give me a bit of information about some of the drivers that sort of put this project in place in the first place?
Sure. So we at AAU, when this program was, I think, designed and envisioned, and then came the operational structure to put it into practice. The aim was twofold. In one hand, there was a big push for integrating employability into our educational offer from a subject discipline, expertise perspective. So when we talk about integrating employability, most people will acknowledge and recognize the need to develop career management skills for students within curriculum. So their capability of developing a professional narrative, of looking at aspirations, writing CVs, and all that, those career management skills that are transferable. But but there is another side of employability is gaining cultural capital, is understanding the industry they're moving into, is understanding major organizations in the area, a little bit of understanding of how networking happens in that subject area, and potential career routes. And also, what are specific subject and skills that are subject knowledge and skills that are required, and putting into context. So that side of a more discipline specific development of employability is what was kind of core for us when thinking about the program. So there was this educational element that was big for us, and the other side of things was thinking about more strategically on supporting business development and access to student and graduate talent in the region. So when the program was being planned and devised, there was a big effort from our very senior executive team at university, both from an education strand, but also research in innovation development strand, working together to make sure that the key stakeholders within the institution that were responsible for business development and innovation, as well as education and employability, were working together as one team, project team. And we've launched it as a project. Now it's part of our bread and butter. We offer it as part of our kind of core curriculum, but we don't have a project team behind it anymore, as we had in the past, kind of with a very clear monitoring plan behind it. But we still meet as a project team. So we have senior leaders from our learning teaching central team, the employability services, and the research development and innovation office as well. And we continue to meet regularly and update each other and work together to continue the success of the program, but looking at expanding it further as well.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit more about how the sort of career service support these sort of live briefs in the curriculum?
Yeah, so probably I need to explain a bit more about the team that looks after the program. So as I said to you, the initial stages of the program was we had a senior management project team behind it, planning the operational delivery for the program and defining, what we call critical attributes for how those briefs would operate. We wanted to ensure that this was an inclusive initiative. So there were core principles that all subject areas, briefs in different subject areas, had to adhere to, and they were important to us. So we worked together on this, and operationally then a specific group called the Curriculum Integration and Development Team was put together. Then I became part of this team. So there are three of us, academic employability consultants. So we come from academic backgrounds. We have quite quite significant experience in curriculum development, and we work with the support of a project officer as well. And we are then responsible for the development of the program, the delivery of the program, and we look after, each of us, a portfolio of around 40 to 50 briefs a year in different subject areas. But what we do then also is work very closely with our employability and careers advisors. So part of our employability and careers team. So they are part of our delivery. What we realized was that because this is so seamlessly integrated in the curriculum, there was a piece of the puzzle kind of missing. So for students, at some point, they started, and many academics as well, started seeing this as a different type of assessment, a very cool type of assessment, but a different type of assessment. They wouldn't necessarily I think, build upon the experience of a live brief as part of their employability development. So careers advisors came into play in the second, from our second year of delivery is when it kind of came to us, oh, we really need their input quite strongly in the curriculum. So what they do is, for first year students, they do what we call a preparation session. So they come into the curriculum, they talk about preparing to interact with partners for students. They discuss with them how a live brief experience and the knowledge and skills students are developing those briefs can be articulated in curriculums and job applications. And for level 5s and upwards, they come towards the end of those briefs, and they help students with very specific articulation of the learning in those briefs into curriculum and job applications as well, so as to help students understand that they can build upon those experiences when talking about what they're able to do with future employers.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of how there's a role for sort of academics. And I think, the more that we talk about integrating employability into the curriculum, the more it becomes a teaching and learning thing. And you need people that have that specialist knowledge of curriculum development. And to have people, I think, what was interesting about this sort of team that was, to have people very much focused on this project, and actually at quite a senior level, it's sort of principal lecturer level, isn't it? Sort of almost equivalent to assistant head.
Yeah.
So it's not sort of, something that's been given to somebody as part of a job. That real focus, I think, to drive something of this sort of magnitude is crucial. But also then there's still that role for the career service in terms of that reflection and articulation of skills, to sort of scaffold that learning. And, I've seen it when I've worked in universities of sort of fantastic projects, but unless it's framed in a certain way, students don't necessarily see that as something they can articulate to employers. And we know, I've worked at lots of universities that's similar to ARU, that articulation and that ability to sort of sell those experiences can often be as important as the experiences themselves, because if that link isn't there, then that can be sort of a real missed opportunity. So what would you say is sort of the cultural impact amongst the sort of academic community of sort of the shift to sort of bringing these things in the curriculum and working with partners in this way?
So as you may expect, when we launched the program, we got through a lot of resistance. And the reason for that, I think, is twofold. One, colleagues were naturally and understandably overwhelmed with the pandemic that was happening at the time. They had to move their teaching all online. That was a lot to consider in their teaching and learning design, to then come out and say, right, you also now have to work with industry partners. And even though those briefs are designed to be integrated seamlessly, that means extra work for the academics, because they need to now rethink how they can fit a brief into a module. Mainly also because those briefs, they are co-designed with industry. So it's not like we come to an industry partner and say, right, can you please come and present a brief on this case study I need to give my students? That's not how it happens. So we had people supporting us and feeling overwhelmed, and we had people a bit skeptical about. Also, one thing that I recall that was a very frequent conversation in the beginning was, oh, but why are we doing this with level 4 students? Why so early? They're not ready. They're not going to engage. There is a reputational risk for the institution. And actually, our professional feedback came back. First year, level 4 students, excellent. Second year, when we have the first level 5 students into the program, the professional feedback about the performance of students at level 4 was higher than the level 5, probably because of the level of expectation of partners from a level 5 students compared to a level 4 as well. So, but we never had issues engaging with partners because we were working with level 4 students, and that was a main concern from academics. So in a way, it does show, this program did show to us as an institution that there was a lot of misconceptions from academics around um, industry interest in their students, and how much they could um, they could actually give back to the community, even if we're not talking about strict commercial value to organizations. So the final year of delivery, I'll give you some numbers so that you can put a um, um, you understand the what I'm talking about in terms of scope. So we do a survey towards the end of briefs with all our module leaders. We do it with our students and partners. And last year we had an increase of over 20% of agreement with statements such as, this life brief has positively impacted on student engagement with the module. This life brief has helped students become more confident to apply knowledge and skills in a professional context. Or this help brief has helped students become more confident to reflect on their experience and achievements in order to build their professional profile. Also, that this brief has helped the overall module design, closing the theory gap. So there was a big shift, big positive change in how academics started to see how briefs contributed to their learning and teaching practice, but also to their student experience.
Yeah, I think, from my experience of when we delivered, not at the scale that we're talking here, but sort of live project modules to sort of 300 students. The confidence and aspirations piece is massive, and actually it acts as almost like a gateway drug. So they're more confident then to sort of engage with sort of other forms of work experience and placements and internships. So we saw a 55% increase in computing students securing a placement in the first year we ran that program, because they have that sort of confidence. I'm quite interested in what you talked about, sort of that resistance from academics. One of the things that often as a careers professional, when you're sort of approaching academics and you're sort of saying, oh, this would, how can we work with you to get this in the curriculum? And often there's things around, professional institutions requirements and these sorts of things, and not having space in the curriculum. And then there's obviously some of the real genuine challenges and barriers to some of that stuff. But how do you feel sort of as an academic having those conversations sort of changes the game a little bit?
Yeah, so I think what happens is, in our case, we know how curriculums operate. Obviously, I was director of studies at the Faculty of Business and Law, so very used to curriculum design, redesign. There is always a way of innovating in curriculums, and I think the fact that I'm an academic myself gives me the legitimacy, if anything, to contest certain decisions that I can see that are not evidence-based. So what sometimes I talk to my colleagues from the careers team when they're having conversations about making an input into the curriculum is that, if they were able to grab a module definition form and decide, well, I could make an input in here, I could create a networking event on this topic with partners, and then I get the careers team in. So it's that knowledge of how they can propose something that integrates into what the academics can do or need to do already. It can make a difference. PSRBs, when we have conversations around PSRBs, I download the PSRBs documents myself and I'll review them back and forth, and I know exactly what can be done, what cannot be done, what course learning outcomes are. So I think there is something around taking an evidence-based approach to those conversations. You need to come with your homework done, benchmarking exercise, homework done. When we're discussing what the universities are doing this, it's not enough to say that. It's you need to bring the information to the table, because colleagues often in faculties, academics are overwhelmed with the amount of things they have to do between teaching, learning, um, administration, research. So they will not have the space and time to do that homework, that legwork of analyzing what is out there that could be brought into as good practice. So people in our roles should be the ones that should be advising them on what is it that can be adjusted, given the resources they already have, or with minimum resource impact to their schools.
Yeah, I think from sort of my experience that often there's a sort of perception sometimes within universities that engaging the partners is a challenging thing, but often if you can sort of work with the academics and identify the gaps and where value can be added, actually it can be quite a lot easier to source the sort of partners to engage in that way. And I found it much more effective to work sort of from the academics than outwards than the other way, because sometimes you get employers and they're like, yeah, we'd love to contribute, and then it falls down in between because there's not space, or you can't secure the sort of time in the curriculum, those sorts of things. Another thing that I think, I was at a conference last Friday around service learning, and one of the things that we discussed at length was sort of often the sort of real hidden labor that goes into sort of that partnership development work and managing those partnerships. And a lot of focus goes on the framework and the assessment and the module development and those sorts of things, but actually that partnership development piece is really important to develop those sustainable partnerships and deliver both a good experience for the students, but also an efficient, easy experience for their partners as well. So can you talk a little bit about how that's managed through this project?
So we serve as a brokerage kind of service, we as consultants. So what we tend to do is, once we know the modules that we are going to be supporting, we get that from conversations with school teams, so heads of school. We then approach the academics responsible for those, and to find out what if they already have some ideas for the modules, if they already have partners in mind. So we will support as and when needed. But in cases where we need to find a partner, so we need to approach, what we do is we tend to first reach to the business engagement teams within the university. So we will get to our research and innovation, the partnership development managers. We go to our employability and careers colleagues that do business engagement. So we first tap into our network, and then we will approach other organizations as and where needed. So we do business engagement as well. It's interesting you touched upon the business development management, because then what we do is we have the responsibility for overseeing that relationship, but we make it very clear to the academic that they own that relationship while they are working on a brief with a partner. From the minute a partner confirms their interest and we have that first meeting and we say, right, it seems we have a draft plan, let's go ahead, they need to kind of care for that relationship. And we are at the background monitoring whether things happen. Sometimes they don't, and we intervene. But that relationship belongs to the academic in a way during the duration of the project at least, because at the end of the day, industry partners come in and they want to engage with people that know what they do as a business. They are interested in nurturing that relationship with their academic. A lot of times those relationships turned into other types of collaboration in relation to innovation, for example, bids and research consultancy, KTP, guest lectures. So that it's really important for kind of making those relationships sustainable from an educational perspective, that those relationships are then mainly, cared for and catered by the faculties. We will always manage those relationships from an institutional perspective, but because our remit is mainly around careers development, the careers team has a focus, which is dealing with HR professionals, and research and innovation has dealings with colleagues that are doing business engagement for R&D activities. So for educational purposes, we need a separate kind of strand of management, which our institution still doesn't have completely established, and we are in the process of trying to make sure faculties have a nominated owner, put it that way, for overlooking those strategic partnerships.
Yeah. So yeah, it's such a fascinating project in how it sort of links together the sort of research and innovation colleagues, the career service, academic curriculum, and the scale as well is sort of incredible. I've got loads more questions that I could ask you, but I'm sort of aware of time, and I want to sort of hand over to our brilliant audience who I can see are lighting up the chat with their questions. So
Yeah.
shall I?
So there is
Shall
a
I?
lot of questions that I'm not quite sure whether I'll be able to go through each of them individually. I didn't say anything about scale, but I can give numbers now.
Yeah.
Just
Give a
that,
few
yeah. So
numbers.
we started 29 live briefs in 2021, 22, 23, we delivered 96 of these. 101 organizations involved, over 5,000 students taking part in this. So it's massive, it's huge. Um, so
One
recommendations.
of the questions is around sort of and give an example of what one of the live briefs might look like. And given that was my next question as well, do you want to share like a cool example from the project?
Yes, yes. So I had a couple. I'll talk about one that is there was in the media, actually was picked up by BBC. So we had our second year illustration students developing some artwork, impactful images, and some designs for a campaign on preventing, fighting violence against women and girls. So they were working with a local NGO called Social Change on this campaign that was commissioned by Cambridge Constabulary. So the artwork was then portrayed throughout the Grand Arcades. For the ones that have been to Cambridge, is our main shopping area. So it was used by Cambridge Constabulary then in different spots, but also was picked up by the media. So that's one of the examples, was a campaign. Another example we've got was, for example, we have work with MathWorks, which is a software development organization. They develop MATLAB, which is a programming language. And we got our first year students having to undergo a series of training on MATLAB, which otherwise they wouldn't have got if it wasn't part of their of a live brief. So they went through these training programs offered by MathWorks, and then they engage with a platform that MathWorks have that does human activity classification, so counting steps, body temperature, and they had to write algorithms using MATLAB and testing the tool for the organization and giving feedback on the training program, but also on the usability of that human classification platform that MathWorks have. So it benefited MathWorks obviously because they have kind of user feedback, but also developed students' capability on a programming language at a level that they wouldn't have got if they wouldn't if they would do that in a voluntary way if they wanted to, obviously, but it was then integrated into their course. And obviously it was both of those examples. We are talking about coursework. Whatever students produce for these partners was then was submitted as a piece of summative assessment.
Yeah. So yeah, that additional training, particularly on sort of technical skills as well, is sort of another great benefit. So I think I'm sort of aware of time. So I think two quick questions. So I think Ali has asked, do students have agency over the live brief they work on? I'm pretty sure it's dependent on the module they're on, isn't it? Rather than sort of them having agency. Is that right?
Yeah, so their agency is, many times, most live briefs offer students a choice of brief.
Yeah.
So in most cases, they will have a choice of theme or topic, but it's not optional to do a live brief because the live brief is linked to one piece of summative assessment in a compulsory module.
And then final question from Olivia at Kingston. So what are the aspirations for the programme moving forward?
Oh, that's a good one. So we are expanding. So we are growing in numbers in terms of offering extra life briefs to students. So we have now a number of additional life briefs into our programs at level 6. The program has been the blueprint for a new type of postgraduate offer that ARU is launching in January to 2024. So we are launching something called professional experience postgraduate courses, and life briefs have been a big component kind of that move that forward. Part of that professional experience is going to be based on very tailored life briefs to that level of student and to account for the experience they are expecting. And then the next steps in terms of pedagogical development is starting to look at more work-based modules as well at an undergraduate level.
Yeah. So I think I can't see everyone, but I'm sure some eyes lit up when they heard about sort of postgraduates and experiential learning, delivering on the professional experience agenda in that space, because I know that's a specific challenge that a lot of career services are wrestling with a number of courses with certain elements of work experience embedded that are pretty hard to deliver on currently. So thank you so much. That's been a brilliant conversation, and it's a fantastic project, and we really appreciate your time today.